Hiya, my name is Mary, and most people know me as being pretty bouncy and bubbly and full of energy and excitement and happiness, and that's really, really cool. But I have a confession to make. Sometimes I get sad. Really, really sad. And sometimes I get angry. Really, really angry. And in today's vlog, I'm going to speak about emotions. And I'm going to speak about the fact that in reality, we all have a full gamut of emotions, and that is totally okay. I'm going to speak about a few specific things that have come up that I think need addressing, that we need to pay a bit more attention to. One of which is that sadness does not equal depression. One of which is just because words are said in anger, that does not invalidate what is being said. And one of which is some underrated emotions that I think we need to spend a little bit more time looking into. So before I kick off discussing these things, I want to quickly address where this vlog comes from, because it's a bit strange to be making a vlog about emotions. But I've had a few comments and statements made that have made me think this is actually more important to address than I had initially thought. A few things which have come from people that are in no way trying to be mean-spirited or nasty. They're not coming from a bad place, but have nonetheless been very concerning. And I think as a society, we are very much conditioned and are continuing to condition very unhealthy ways of thinking about emotions. I think in general, we've never been encouraged to show negative emotions, and I think in a lot of ways they are quite misunderstood and misrepresented. Just because someone has emotions, that does not make them sick. And I think this is another problem. I think that there is also a massive misconception about mental health. And the first thing I'm going to discuss is sadness. I think sadness is very, very, very important to talk about because so few people talk about it. Ever since well before the time of social media, people have been encouraged to only express happiness or contentment. Don't speak too much about your misery, kind of hold it behind because no one cares, no one likes to hear it. You'll make for a boring conversation. Just don't do it. And now that social media is around, obviously it's even higher in proliferation that you see that people don't want to share these negative emotions. They don't want to share sadness specifically because it doesn't make their brand look good. And everyone now with an Instagram account has a brand, and that's not to denote words like brand or aesthetic. You could definitely, especially for an artist, relegate their Instagram into being a representation of their brand. But at the same time, it has meant that in reality, we're not showing our full gamut of emotions online. So we're not really seeing sadness the way that it really is felt by the greater majority of people. And I think in general, it's quite misunderstood. Now, I have chanced across specifically the misunderstanding between sadness and depression. Now, I have specifically been told, as I mentioned, are you depressed, or you seem depressed, or you are depressed just straight up, because I have expressed sadness before. Now, I do a lot of things online. I make videos. I've made videos about content creation, about music. I've made music videos. I've done songs, and I've streamed on Twitch. And I'm not very good at hiding my emotions. They kind of pour out. So if I've had a bad day, people know I've had a bad day. And having someone turn around to me and say something like, you are depressed or you have depression, is extremely harmful for a number of reasons. First of all, it is inaccurate. I do not have depression. Secondly, it is harmful for both me or anyone else that is not depressed to hear that. And it is harmful for those that are depressed. For the person that is not depressed to hear that they are depressed, first of all, it is spreading misinformation. This is much worse than people think it is overall, but it's spreading misinformation. It may be confusing me into thinking, oh, maybe I do have depression, which is inaccurate. And it's also I wouldn't say downgrading is the right word, but it's misrepresenting what depression is. Depression is quite different to simply being sad, as someone with depression would try and explain to you at length. Listen to them. And I think overall there is now more awareness of mental health issues, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's accompanied by understanding. And I understand how hard it is to understand, because I come from a background where I didn't understand, and I'm still learning, certainly not there. I am not a qualified psychologist, so do not take any of this vlog as being qualified psychology. I'm still learning, but at the same time, I certainly have learnt that there is a massive difference between sadness and depression. One of the big examples that really opened my eyes that I now share is when I'm feeling sad, someone can come up to me and say, think about the fact that you have these beautiful guitars, and I love my guitars, and you have this piano and you can play music all day. And then I'll sit there and I'll be like, I do have rather nice guitars, because I do. They're phenomenal. I love my guitars. But it will make me feel better. Whereas if you say this to someone with depression, they'll actually feel guilty about the fact they feel sad. Their mind is taking different pathways to my mind. And because of that, that is why we have professionals. This is why you cannot understate how important these professionals that study to learn these different pathways, you can't understate how important they are. And how important it is that we treat things like depression and other mental health illnesses as things that need to be treated. They're not just sadness. Because if you treat them the same way you treat sadness, you will not treat them at all. You may actually make things worse. So I think it's very important that that distinction is made and that we stop misrepresenting sadness as depression. Firstly, it is normal to be sad, especially as most sadness is triggered by an event, something happening, you thinking of something, something didn't work, your computer didn't start up. It's actually normal to be sad. It's more worrying if you're not sad when something like that happens. I actually believe that a number of people who suffer depression experience numbness rather than what we experience as sadness. So really, it does depend on the person and the situation. So let me not get too medical here because I'm not actually qualified for that. But I think it's important that we distinguish the two as separate and that sadness is a normal emotion we are allowed to have. But do not immediately denote it as being depression. It is not. They are two separate things. The next thing I wanted to talk about was anger and frustration and irritation and all the things that kind of fall from that one tree. And specifically, I wanted to speak about something that may elicit a few groans, but I think honestly I think it's indisputable. I think this especially affects women. It does affect men as well, but I think it especially affects women. And that is when you say something and you express something through anger or frustration, sometimes the people listening, they don't hear what you're saying. Now, what happened in my situation is I've expressed things like this before and the response has literally been, you seem angry or you seem frustrated. And it'll take me a moment before I realize the person didn't hear a single word I said. All they heard while I was speaking was, oh, she seems angry. Or, oh, she seems really frustrated. They didn't hear what I was saying at all. And this is extremely, extremely frustrating for a number of reasons. The first is not every time that you are in anger are you in rage. And when you're enraged and you're out of control and you're saying things you don't mean, yes, take what's being said as a grain of salt. But when you're saying something with anger and passion and frustration, that doesn't mean that what you're saying is not worth listening to. In fact, a lot of the time, it's actually a marker for how important what you're saying really is to you. And a lot of the time, it's actually warranted. That tone of voice is warranted. If someone has gone through something that has made them angry, over an extended period of time, if anything, it's not just understandable that they'd speak in that tone of voice, it's weird if they don't. Expecting them to calm down and say it in a nice tone of voice it's wrong. Unless you want them to be a sociopath or something. I don't even know. Again, I'm not a psychologist, but you can't switch off emotions. If something makes you angry and you say something in an angry voice about the fact that it made you angry, that is normal and that is human. If there is a mosquito in your bedroom and you can't seem to kill it and it keeps biting you and it keeps keeping you awake, it is okay for you to be frustrated. And there is nothing wrong with that, regardless of what gender you are. So I think that's very, very important to understand. Just because someone speaks in an angry voice, it doesn't mean what they're saying is not worth listening to. And also, it's pretty normal to be angry sometimes. Now, the third thing I wanted to speak about was underrated emotions. Now, there's going to be two that I mention here. And I think these two emotions really, a lot of people sweep a lot of emotions under the rug as being unimportant. But these two, really, a lot of the time people are just like, oh, you need to get over that, or it'll pass, it's not much of a thing, or oh, you'll forget about it soon. But a lot of the time, these two emotions can weigh on people far more than we give them credit for. And I think we really need to think a little bit harder about how to deal with these emotions and how to work through them. Because oftentimes, I think they can be as damaging, if not more damaging, than sadness or anger. The first one is regret. And the second one is guilt. I'm going to start with regret. Now, regret can be anything from I wish I'd spoken to her, I wish I'd done this, to I wish I didn't buy this product, I wish I bought that product. And I do believe that this can both occupy far more of your mind and your time than many will admit to. And also, it can be quite negative and lead to other negative emotions. And I think a lot of the time when someone says something along the lines of, I just bought a Kindle, so this is the first thing that's coming to my mind. Oh, I bought this Kindle. I wish I'd bought the other Kindle that had extra space in it. You might be tempted to be like, oh, it's all right. You'll get over it. You'll realize you're fine. But in reality, that person might sit there thinking about it and Googling the various Kindles for the next half a day and then be like, oh, I made a serious mistake, whatnot. And this is a very, very simple example of that. But that takes up so much more of their mind and their space and their time than you think. And it can get far, far worse when it comes to relationships with people and regrets about that, things you say, things you do, applications you may make, whatnot, what you study, etc. It can go to any length. And I think in reality, people need to pay a bit more attention to regret. Now, the next one is guilt. And I think guilt is different to regret in the sense that I think it's used as a manipulation tactic more often than most anything else. I think it is the most underrated emotion because of this. So when someone says to another person, oh, I didn't really expect you to, it's okay, don't feel guilty about it. Sometimes, most of the time, that will weigh on that person's mind way more than one would think. Guilt can drive our actions, can drive what we do and what we say. It can essentially drive our entire society, and it can drive us insane. Guilt, I think, is one of the main tactics of people who are manipulating other people because it's subtle enough that people will just be like, oh, you'll get over it. But it's such a strong emotion in reality that it actually will drive their behavior. I think in general, not only is guilt a problem when it comes to manipulation, but it's in general a problem for us as humans. One of the most obvious examples is guilt when it comes to food. Now, some people don't have this issue, but plenty of people out there, and again, maybe I'm overstepping saying this here, but I think this especially applies to women because of expectations placed upon women. When it comes to eating food, sometimes you can feel guilty because, one, it's unhealthy. People will judge other people's health based on their looks, their appearance, what they're eating, and make statements about it, which I think is exceedingly inappropriate a lot of the time. But it can drive it because, oh, you don't want to eat it, it's unhealthy. You don't want to eat it, it will make you fat. You don't want to eat it, people will judge you for eating that, etc. And then you feel guilt. Imagine sitting down to have a delicious slice of cheesecake. I freaking love cheesecake. And then have someone turn around and make you feel guilty about that. Imagine that someone being you, because you've got that voice in your head telling you, oh, you're going to get fat and then no one's going to love you. It's ridiculous that we could be conditioned into guilt. But I think that that's something that is happening. And I think that that emotion is stronger and more damaging than we are actually acknowledging. And I think we need to actually acknowledge that both regret and guilt are two very strong emotions that are used to manipulate us and to make us feel ways really we shouldn't feel. Okay, at this point, I've gotten to pretty much the end of my rant. I do want to say that, again, I'm not a professional. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just a human with thoughts and opinions and passion, and someone that's noticed a pattern of behavior that I think is very dangerous and damaging and something we need to address. I thought I would try and highlight it a bit in this vlog, and I'd love if these ideas could be shared around and we could hopefully change the pattern of behavior in the future. So when someone is sad, people no longer call them immediately depressed or having depression. When someone is angry, people don't immediately dismiss what they have to say because it's said in an angry tone, so they must be an angry person, or they're in rage and they're not thinking about what they're saying. I feel like regret and guilt need to stop being treated like secondhand emotions that don't matter that much. And we need to start seeing how big of an impact they're having. I'm not sure at which point my battery for my audio recorder ran out, or if any of that was captured on audio. Oops. But I really, really liked that take, and I really think I got all the points across there, so I'm going to be using that one. Thank you so very, very much for watching, and I hope you have a phenomenal day. Thank you for watching my video. If you liked it, I would love for you to hit down that subscribe button and also the bell notification button so you can be notified in future when I put up videos. Also, I'd love to do a massive shout out for everyone who is a part of Ninja Club. Your support and encouragement is absolutely invaluable. Thank you so, so very much. If you're a fan of what I do, I encourage you to check out Ninja Club. There is a link at the top of the description box, and have a wonderful rest of your day. You rock all the Lego blocks.